Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom is shared. We wish you a pleasant listening experience. Today, the book we are going to explore is The Second Mountain, which also has a subtitle, The Quest for Moral Life. The essence of it is an exploration of ethical living. We know that ethical living and the meaning of life are two of the oldest and most fundamental philosophical questions. They are the questions that all philosophers must first address when interpreting life and the world. It's about what kind of life we want to lead and what moral principles we want to adhere to. Of course, it's not just philosophers who need to contemplate these questions. Every ordinary person, at different stages of life, unconsciously asks questions about the meaning of life. In simpler terms, it's asking, why do we exist? One of the most famous answers to this question comes from the British philosopher Bertrand Russell. The desire for love, the pursuit of knowledge, and the unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind have been the dominant passions of my life. Russell was one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. While we may not reach his level, at least we can find inspiration in his words, which suggest that regardless of our life pursuits, these passions will serve as guiding principles in our actions. Thoughts guide actions, and actions shape destiny. So, what makes The Second Mountain, which claims to find meaning in life, unique? Let's first get to know its author. The author, David Brooks, is a highly popular columnist for the New York Times in the United States, admired by many elite groups in the country. In his previous works, The Social Animal and The Road to Character, he discussed the relationship between human achievement in character, integrity, and morality. In his writing, you can see his enthusiasm and confidence. However, after completing The Road to Character, he entered the most tumultuous period of his life. His 27-year marriage came to an end, he moved houses, and his 2 children were leaving for college. What was once a happy family fell apart. He found himself in pain, shame, and loneliness. When he sought comfort from friends, he discovered that he didn't even have a friend to confide in. This was because, in his pursuit of career success, he had been indifferent, neglectful, and lacking in empathy toward the people around him, avoiding the responsibilities that come with various interpersonal relationships. Faced with unexpected setbacks, he began to rethink his life. He realized that his biggest problem was falling into extreme individualism. He used to firmly believe that one could shape a good character and achieve success through personal effort, just as one can work out to build physical fitness. However, in the isolation of life's valley, he realized that his previous understanding was flawed. He recognized that the rampant individualism in our culture is a disaster, emphasizing self-success, self-improvement, and personal freedom as the sole goals. In his book, he likens life to climbing 2 mountains. The first mountain is about personal achievement, external recognition, and enjoyment. The second mountain is about devotion. He emphasizes getting rid of the self and sacrificing for a higher calling, helping those in need. However, those who climb the second mountain do not reject worldly pleasures. They can also enjoy fine dining and beautiful scenery, but their lives move toward a higher form of goodness in the pursuit of moral happiness. In today's audio, I will follow the classic approach of what is it? Why do it? How to do it, and break down this book into 3 parts for you. First, what is the second mountain of life? Second, why should one climb the second mountain? Finally, how can one climb the second mountain? Comparing life to a mountain climb is a common metaphor. For instance, Marx once said, "There is no royal road to science, and only those who do not dread the fatiguing climb of its steep paths have a chance of gaining its luminous summits." In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was punished for his transgressions against the gods. He was condemned to roll a massive stone up a hill, only for it to roll back down every time he reached the summit. Sisyphus endlessly repeated this futile task. Sisyphus's story, as interpreted by the French writer Albert Camus, became a classic case in existentialism. Pushing the boulder uphill itself was a meaningless and futile endeavor, but the effort and struggle of the process gave it meaning. Camus argued that the struggle upward is enough to fill a person's soul. People should imagine Sisyphus as happy. Indeed, Brooks also emphasizes happiness and divides it into several levels, including physical happiness, emotional happiness, and spiritual happiness. But he believes that the highest level of true happiness is moral happiness. Other forms of happiness are fleeting experiences, while moral happiness is eternal. He points out that figures like Pope Francis, Bishop Tutu, and volunteers for humanitarian causes may possess this type of happiness. In their moments of moral elevation, they cast aside worldly concerns and replace them with hope, love, and moral inspiration. These moments of moral elevation invigorate them, providing a strong motivation to do good, make sacrifices, take action, and help others. From this, his theory of climbing mountains is born because different levels of happiness correspond to different levels of life pursuit. He proposes a dual peak model of life. Upon leaving school, people embark on their careers or start families, establishing their first mountain to climb. This might include becoming a lawyer, a police officer, a doctor, and so on. The mission on the first mountain is to build an identity, leave their parents' home, cultivate themselves, and achieve societal success and recognition. This might involve having a decent job, a nice house, a comfortable life, and expanding their social circle. Some people, after reaching the first mountain and tasting success, find it unsatisfying. They question if this is all there is to life and feel that there is a long road ahead, rather than falling into a void after achieving success. Others may not even make it to the top of the first mountain, stumbling halfway down into the valley of life. There, they struggle in pain, disappointment, and loneliness. They may become listless, resentful, or endlessly irritable. Brooks believes that regardless of how smoothly the journey up the first mountain goes, people may, at certain moments, feel dissatisfied with life. This is when the second mountain comes into play. For example, some successful entrepreneurs or celebrities may have accumulated wealth that could last for generations. The increase in their net worth becomes a mere numbers game, no longer sparking their interest. These individuals may choose to devote themselves to philanthropy or cultural and educational endeavors, creating more social value. Examples include the foundations established by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, which focus on eradicating poverty, reducing infectious diseases, and improving the survival conditions of women and children. They embark on the second mountain after reaching the peak of the first. Does this mean that only those who successfully climb the first mountain are qualified to ascend the second? Not at all. Some people have never reached the summit of the first mountain, they've tumbled from halfway up into the valley. Yet, the valley becomes a place that shapes them. In their suffering, they see a deeper self, sense the instinct for love deep within, and yearn to transcend themselves, care for others, and become better people. They feel a calling to engage in moral causes and lead a moral life because they perceive a greater well-being than personal happiness. For instance, you might have heard of someone who suffered a major illness or a near-fatal accident. During their recovery, they reconsidered their life and realized that if they were to leave this world, it would be a waste. After recovering, they committed to volunteering, became teachers in remote areas, worked as community volunteers, or provided free legal or medical assistance to others. They chose to devote themselves to something bigger than themselves. In fact, including Brooks himself, many have only understood the existence of the second mountain after experiencing setbacks in life. He conceived the idea of writing The Second Mountain after extensive reading and reflection to complement the shortcomings in his previous works. Additionally, he initiated a project called Weave, the Social Fabric Project. The purpose of this project is to draw people's attention to grassroots workers who are involved in community building and relationship repair. Through this research, he found himself inspired almost every day by those who were dedicated to serving their communities. After discussing what the second mountain is, let's now explore why there is a need for a second mountain. Brooks believes that both individuals and society need to climb the second mountain because our society is currently immersed in an extreme culture of individualism, facing a crisis of connection and unity. The relationship between individuals and groups, as well as individuals and society, is tense, and therefore, there is a need for a more altruistic culture. He states that when emotions are needed, we are overly rational, when morality is needed, we are overly utilitarian, when public concern is needed, we are overly focused on the individual. So, why has individualism become a dominant trend? It's important to note that humans are social creatures, and our ability to become the dominant species on Earth does not stem from physical strength, speed, or power. Instead, it comes from our ability to collaborate, which led to the development of civilization. From tribes to nations and then to countries, individuals have been woven into increasingly larger social networks. The number of people in this network far exceeds our comprehension, which anthropologists refer to as the imagined community. In the face of disasters like war, famine, and pandemics, Human connections and cooperation are essential survival mechanisms. However, conversely, this social web can also bind, constrain, and even enslave individuals. Thus, there is a tension between the need for individual attachment to society and the need to guard against being enslaved by it. In comparison to this society-oriented and authoritarian culture, individualism is a more progressive social trend. It emphasizes individual power and freedom. In Marx's words, an ideal society should be a union of free individuals. In today's Western society, the emphasis on individual freedom and power is almost unquestionable political correctness. It has become a moral ecology. Brooks does not deny the progressive significance of individualism, but he emphasizes that extreme individualism is causing a comprehensive crisis. The rise of extreme individualism has occurred in recent decades. In the first half of the 20th century, people in the Northern Hemisphere faced the Great Depression and 2 world wars. These major challenges required people to unite and respond. People voluntarily joined the military, formed labor unions or relief organizations, or worked for large companies, closely linking the people of warring nations. This culture emphasized duty, integration into institutions, teamwork, and obedience to authority, rather than trying to stand out or seek personal gain. This group-oriented moral ecology can be summed up as, we weave together. Brooks believes that this, we weave together, moral ecology continued until after the war. It did not emphasize personal choices and freedom but humility and holy words. The message was that you are not superior to anyone else, and no one is superior to you. Selfishness and narcissism were seen as roots of evil. If you talked too much about yourself, people would say you were conceited and look down upon you. The advantage, however, was that people had rich and vibrant public lives, and relationships between community members were close and harmonious. People helped and supported each other in their daily lives. This collectivist culture had its charm and was familiar, especially to those who had transitioned from a planned economy. However, as the crisis of war subsided, people gradually felt that this culture was stifling and oppressive. In the 1950s and 1960s, the counterculture and hippie movements arose. Young people despised tradition, resisted authority, and pursued independence and individual liberation. Individualism became a new trend. They believed that everyone had the right to live life as they pleased, as long as it didn't interfere with others' lives. The goal of life was self-realization and self-satisfaction. They learned to be loyal to their own feelings rather than external societal standards. They believed that the best life was the freest life. Individuals were freed from dogma, political oppression, social prejudice, and group conformity. The idea of individual supremacy gradually became mainstream in society. This wave of intellectual liberation unleashed enormous productivity and creativity, rapidly increasing social vitality. However, its negative consequences began to accumulate slowly. After half a century of development and dissemination, extreme individualism has become more and more pronounced. Brooks points out that in a society dominated by extreme individualism, the measure of a person is not whether they adhere to common moral principles, but their personal achievements. Selfishness is acceptable because self-improvement is the primary mission. Self-centeredness is possible because, in a well-structured society, individual selfishness can be used to produce public goods and promote economic growth. Under increasingly uniform societal standards, people are losing some precious qualities, such as kindness, empathy, responsibility, and a sense of the common good. People are becoming more alienated in society, emotionally, socially, and physically. Many people lack care even for their families and have lost the passion for romantic relationships. Brooks himself experienced a lack of concern for family and friends due to work, leading to divorce and alienation from friends. He states that individualism used to be a paradise for our grandparents, but after half a century of liberation, it has become our hell. Brooks summarizes that individualism has led to 4 interconnected social crises. The first crisis is loneliness, with many people in a prolonged state of solitude. Loneliness has led to an increase in suicide rates and the misuse of opioids. In recent years, approximately 45,000 Americans die by suicide annually, and life expectancy has declined as a result. The second crisis is a crisis of social trust. People's trust in neighbors. So how can we change this societal atmosphere and build a warmer, more interdependent society? Or, in other words, how can people climb the second mountain of their lives? Brooks emphasizes the following. First, individuals should listen to the voices deep within themselves, understand their true desires, and not simply go along with the flow. Second, people should focus on the growth of their hearts and souls and take on moral responsibilities. Lastly, individuals should value the role of commitment, which could be to a person, a cause, or a belief. Because of commitment, a person is willing to dedicate themselves to it. Next, he provides a detailed explanation of how to climb the second mountain, using 4 dimensions: career, marriage, vocation, and community. Why choose these 4 dimensions? It's because they conveniently encompass some of the most important themes in life: family, career, life purpose, and faith. Due to space constraints, I'll primarily focus on the career and community dimensions here. If you're interested in the other 2 dimensions, I recommend reading the original work. Let's start with the career dimension. As a writer, Brooks enters this dimension through the lens of writing. He introduces the writing experience of the famous dystopian author, George Orwell. Orwell mentioned that his writing had 4 basic motives. 1. Pure egoism. He wanted to appear clever, seeking the desire for people to talk about him. 2. Aesthetic enthusiasm. He found pleasure in constructing sentences and phrases. 3. Historical impulse. He had a desire for understanding, wanting to see things for what they truly were and uncovering the truth. 4. Political purpose. He aimed to push the world in a particular direction, changing people's ideas about the kind of society that should be built. To become a writer, Orwell did 3 things. First, he lived among the poor. Being a leftist, he had sympathy for the lower class. But he felt that his socialist comrades had little direct connection with the poor they claimed to liberate. So, at the beginning of his writing career, he chose to travel from village to village, living with the lower class people. Then, he tried to create a new form of writing, turning non-fiction into a literary form, eventually becoming a master of using prophecy to express political views. Finally, to fulfill his mission, he fought alongside anarchists in the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. He learned to see reality without illusion, which made him a great writer. Additionally, Brooks provides examples of biologist Edward Wilson and physicist Albert Einstein. Wilson was drawn to various animals from a young age, feeling a calling to become a biologist. However, he had a life-changing accident as a child when he was impaled in the right eye by a fishbone while fishing. He lost sight in that eye and couldn't study birds, which required stereoscopic vision. So, he focused on studying tiny creatures like ants instead. His unparalleled passion led to great achievements in the field of biology. Einstein, on the other hand, pursued a career in physics because he was driven by curiosity. At the age of 4 or 5, he saw a compass needle moving under the influence of a magnetic field, which deeply impressed him. He realized that behind things, there must be hidden forces. He became fascinated with understanding these hidden powers, including magnetic fields, gravity, inertia, and acceleration, eventually becoming a physicist. Brooks suggests that the examples of Orwell, Wilson, and Einstein illustrate that career choices should be guided by one's inner calling. It's about examining your life, discovering what truly excites your soul. You need to heed the call of your mission because it's about the meaning and purpose of your life, something you should dedicate yourself to throughout your life. Only then will you wholeheartedly endure various hardships, strive for excellence, and potentially contribute exceptional value to society. So, you see, a career holds 2 aspects of value: finding meaning in an individual's life and contributing value to society. However, in reality, many people, when choosing their jobs, prioritize factors like income, ease of work, and proximity to home. For them, work is merely a means of livelihood. Those who climb the second mountain don't approach this matter in the same way. Now let's take a look at the dimension of community. As mentioned earlier, in a society dominated by extreme individualism, relationships between neighbors and communities tend to be indifferent. You might have lived in a neighborhood for many years without knowing your next-door neighbors. Despite living in close proximity, people often remain as strangers because everyone is self-centered. This individualistic mindset suggests that each person's focus should be on self-realization. As long as you lead a good life without disturbing or harming others, what you choose to do is your own business. People emphasize spiritual freedom and independence, viewing themselves as the center of their lives, with others being irrelevant. Individuals break free from various constraints, not identifying as citizens of a nation, employees of a company, dutiful children, or obedient students, but rather as themselves. They refuse to be defined by others or have their actions dictated, seeking unrestricted development. This liberation of the individual certainly has its merits, but it has also led to societal apathy and a sense of distance between people. In the past, communities were close-knit, with neighbors helping each other and sharing resources. Neighbors would look after each other's children, and in times of crisis, the community would come together to resolve issues. Communities served as warm places, second only to families. However, things have changed. Brooks believes that a significant reason for this transformation is that government and the market have taken over many community services that previously existed. Now, when trouble arises, there are the police, schools for children, moving companies for relocations, and hospitals for health issues. Everything has a formal service. People's attachment to and sense of belonging in their communities have weakened, while their independence has greatly increased. It's as if everyone is leading an isolated life, and the rich tapestry of community life has disappeared. So, how can we restore vitality and warmth to our communities? Brooks believes it requires the efforts of those living on the second mountain. These individuals are passionate about helping others and serving their communities. They prioritize building neighborly relationships and use various means to re-establish the bonds within communities, replacing cold distance with intimate connections. Remember the community building projects mentioned earlier? Brooks spent considerable time engaging with individuals and organizations dedicated to community development. They bring people together by creating public spaces, organizing gatherings, and community activities. For instance, an organization called Merlot successfully recruited volunteers from Johns Hopkins University to serve the community. These volunteers provided specialized knowledge in areas like legal aid, college preparation, and psychological counseling. Over time, Merlot grew into a network involving over 400 students and more than 1,000 volunteers, contributing to a warmer community life. Initially, local community residents were indifferent to these unfamiliar volunteers, but they continued to show up in the community, gradually building trust. As the founder of Merlot organization put it, unconditional love is very rare in life. Even if you're rejected at first, your identity will change as you keep appearing. As British author E.M. Forster once said, the main delusion of modern political activity is believing that a perfect system can be established without good people. This utopian view of systems has its place, and indeed, we need to enhance governance at the institutional and legal levels. However, it neglects the needs and power of individuals. Without trust, kindness, care, or loyalty among people, society becomes a jungle where the market and state collapse, and individuals cannot find happiness. At the end of the book, Brooks advocates for a philosophy known as relationalism. Relationalism falls between extreme individualism and collectivism, striving to maintain connections between people without isolating them into disconnected, self-centered individuals or binding them entirely to a group, erasing their individuality. Life should not be a solitary journey. We crave intimate relationships. People can find nourishment in various social connections, and society requires strong bonds between individuals. Life should not be solely driven by personal desires or guided by a singular utilitarian standard. Instead, we should strive to contribute to something greater than ourselves and climb the second mountain of life. Brooks once said that whether in family, career, or neighborly relationships, the ultimate belief of a relationalist is that we can each grow and improve ourselves, while at the deepest level, we are interconnected. Climbing the second mountain is about seeking a more genuine and enduring happiness and building a society based on trust, reciprocity, and interdependence. Such a society fosters attachment and vibrancy. Climbing the second mountain should not just be empty words but rather a lifelong journey of value. Alright, that's the essence of this book. Congratulations, you've completed another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker Channel audiobook channel. Like and share it with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading, opening the way to a better future. Thank you, and goodbye.